All right, I'm going to call this meeting to order. If you would join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And I'll just note that we have Trustee Kim Bradley Reichert, who is on screen, and we are wishing her a speedy recovery. But we do have a quorum here in Village Hall, so we are all able to proceed, and Kim is able to participate and vote in the meeting as per our video conferencing law that we passed in April. First item of business is approving the minutes from the November 30th workshop meeting. Everyone had a chance to review the minutes? Mm-hmm. Yes. I'll take a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Thank you, Steve. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Charlie. Any edits, questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Thank you, Kim. Okay, the next thing we have a public hearing on local law to clarify the purposes and intent of the neighborhood mixed-use district. I need a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Thank you, Melkorka. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Steve. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so this is a
Good. Thanks, Kim.
This is a public hearing. That goes there. Regarding the local law to clarify the purpose and intent of the neighborhood mixed-use district. Our zoning enforcement officer determined that, based on the language in our zoning code, that every parcel in the neighborhood mixed-use district had to have both residential and commercial. And the board felt that that was not the original intent, and so we wanted to clarify that it can be either residential or commercial or both on a given parcel in the neighborhood mixed-use district. And that is the intent of the law. Is there anyone here to comment on for this public hearing? Okay, hearing none. We will then close the public hearing. May I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Thank you, Melkorka. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Steve. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Kim. We have two items of business to do before reviewing the resolution. The first is the environmental assessment form. We reviewed and passed part 1, and now we just need to go through part 2. This is relatively quick. However, because it's a district in the village, it covers a reasonably wide area of the village, which is why the full environmental assessment form is required. So on the item of impact on the land, proposed action may involve construction on or physical alteration of the land surface of the proposed site. The answer is no. Impact on geological features. This, because it's just a definition change, it's not actual construction or change of that nature. The answer to that is no. Impact on surface water is no. Impact on groundwater is no. Impact on flooding is no. Impact on air is no. Impact on plants and animals is no. Impact on agricultural resources is no. Impact on aesthetic resources is no. Impact on historic and archaeological resources. The proposed action may occur in or adjacent to a historic or archaeological resource. The answer to that is yes. And the items associated with that are all no or small impact may occur. So the proposed action may occur wholly or partially within or substantially contiguous to any buildings, archaeological site, or district which is listed on the National or State Register of Historic Places. The proposed action may occur wholly or partially within or substantially contiguous to an area designated as sensitive for archaeological sites. Proposed action may occur wholly or partially within or substantially contiguous to an archaeological site not included in the SHPO inventory. And then the proposed action may result in the destruction or alteration of all or part of the site or property. Proposed action may result in the alteration of the property's setting or integrity. Proposed action may result in the introduction of visual elements which are out of character with the site or property or may alter its setting. All of those is either no or small impact may occur. Then there's impact on open space and recreation. The answer is no. Impact on critical environmental areas. The answer is no. Impact on transportation. The answer is no. Impact on energy. The answer is no. Impact on noise, odor, and light. The answer is no. Impact on human health. The answer is no. Oops, sorry, two more. Consistency with community plans. Oh, the proposed action is not consistent with adopted land use plans. The answer is no. And then consistency with community character. The proposed project is inconsistent with the existing community character. The answer to that is also no. Does anybody have any questions or want to review any of these items more closely? I did go relatively quickly through that. But again, this is just a clarification of a definition. Hearing none, let's go on to Part 3, because the resolution, I believe, covers it all. So Part 3, upon review of the information recorded in this EAF, as noted, plus this additional support information, which is the board's own knowledge of the village, and considering both the magnitude and importance of each identified potential impact, it is the conclusion of the Village of Red Hook Board of Trustees as lead agency that this project will result in no significant adverse impacts on the environment, and therefore an environmental impact statement need not be prepared. Accordingly, this negative declaration is issued. So that is the Part 3 portion. Any questions or issues with that? No, hearing none. We'll move on to, in your packet, as you may have seen, we did get a response from the Dutchess County Planning Department, and their response was it's a matter of local concern. So now we can move on to the resolution, which is resolution number 69. Resolution to adopt local law number 4 of 2023, entitled "A Local Law to Clarify the Purposes and Intent of the Neighborhood Mixed-Use District." Whereas on November 13th, 2023, a proposed form of the local law entitled "A Local Law to Clarify the Purposes and Intent of the Neighborhood Mixed-Use District" was laid on the desks or in the mailboxes of the Village Board of Trustees. Whereas the proposed local law clarifies that residential, commercial, or mixed uses are permitted on a single lot in the neighborhood mixed-use district. Whereas pursuant to Section 239M of the General Municipal Law, and the proposed local law was referred to Dutchess County Planning Department and Development, which responded on December 11th that it was a matter of local concern. Whereas a duly noticed public hearing on the proposed local law was held on December 11th, 2023, during which all those who wished to speak were heard. Whereas on November 13, the Village Board of Trustees classified the proposed local law as a Type 1 action in accordance with the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, or SECRA, and declared itself lead agency as it is the only involved agency. Whereas the board reviewed Parts 1, 2, and 3 of the EAF and information obtained through its own knowledge, the public hearing, its consultants, and other agencies, and has sufficient information on which to base a determination of significance. Whereas the board has considered the criteria contained in 6 NYCRR 617.7 and thoroughly analyzed all identified relevant areas of environmental concern. Whereas on November 11th, the Village Board of Trustees adopted a determination of significance, a negative declaration determining that the proposed law would not result in any significant adverse environmental impacts. And now therefore be it resolved by the board as follows. The board hereby adopts a negative declaration, finding that the adoption of the proposed local law will not result in any significant adverse environmental impacts and that a draft environmental impact statement will not be prepared. The board hereby adopts the proposed local law as local law number 4 of 2023, that the village clerk be and she hereby is directed to enter said local law in the minutes of this meeting and in the village code of the Village of Red Hook, to give due notice of the adoption of said local law to the Secretary of State of New York and take all other actions as may be required by law. The village clerk be and she hereby is directed to file notice of the negative declaration with the environmental notice bulletin. May I have a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Thank you, Steve. Second.
I'll second.
Charlie? Any further discussion, questions?
Which resolution was it? What number?
69.
Thank you.
Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Super. Okay, on to the next public hearing. This is a public hearing related to a proposed local law regarding vehicle and traffic regulation amendment related to the municipal parking lot. May I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Thank you, Charlie. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Steve. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. The proposed local law is to change the regulations. Currently in our code, the village parking lot rules are 2-hour parking. However, we have not actually enforced that. I don't know if we ever did, but we certainly haven't since I've been mayor. And what we're proposing is to change what's in our actual law to 4-hour parking between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. With no long-term parking allowed. And as we have done with 48 hours' notice, people would be required to leave the parking lot. We will periodically close the parking lot for village events, as an example. Is there anyone here who would like to make a comment on this proposed local law? Okay, nobody here. Anybody on screen? No, no one there. We did get an email, which I will read into the record, from Kevin Zulch, who has Zulch Tax, what's the name of his company? Tax Consultants and Accountants. That's right next door over here. It came to my attention that there will be some changes to the municipal parking lot. I've been a town of Red Hook resident for 20 years and absolutely love it here. And 10 years ago, I moved my accounting and tax consulting practice into the Village of Red Hook to 8 Prince Street, the former Pine Street Pediatrics Medical Office. I purchased the building with the dream that maybe one day, when I retire, I may convert it, with village approval, back to a residence for us as we continue to age. We employ 10 professionals, including one of the founders and business partner. These folks also patronize the local businesses all the time. I've been a Red Hook cheerleader since day one, back during the Great Recession. When I was the VP of the Red Hook Area Chamber of Commerce, I spearheaded a committee to encourage businesses to come to Red Hook. Todd Baywright had 10 commercial vacancies at the time, so Ed Pruitt, Chamber President at the time, and I went door to door in the village to motivate the merchants and restaurant owners to keep moving forward and to pass the word to fellow entrepreneurs that Red Hook was open for business. As a result, pop-up stores opened, and quickly many of these storefronts were rented permanently. In addition, we rolled out Red Hook Hot Friday nights in the summer so patrons could shop at the stores after 5 p.m., etc. This brings me to the parking situation. We have 6 to 7 employees who use the municipal lot from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. We just learned there was a 4-hour parking limit for people with parking permits. That's actually, well, I'll just keep reading. This past weekend was the first time I was made aware of this ordinance, so my apologies for not knowing this. We purposely didn't want to tie up Prince Street with parking at the curb in front of our building or in front of our neighbors' homes, so we thought we'd reserve those spaces for folks to be able to park closer to the court and the village building. We are asked several times by our clients and other visitors of the village if the spaces in front of our building are legal parking spots because it is mostly underutilized. Back in the early part of this year, we too noticed that the parking lot was filling up more than usual, so we thought that perhaps tenants of the multifamily houses had extra vehicles and figured they were the car owners leaving their vehicles overnight. I am not asking for special treatment for my employees, but I ask that you consider that we are contributing to this village as a business owner, employer, and patrons of the restaurants and shops before making a final decision. Changing the policy or enforcing the rules with respect to parking time limits will not only be an inconvenience to our employees, but will also disrupt the neighborhood, with us having to find spots elsewhere, and perhaps creating a parking issue for the residents of the homes on Prince Street and Church Street, which then may drive them to the municipal lot, thereby creating even more congestion. We did some digging, and Rhinebeck encourages the employees of their businesses to use their municipal lots so patrons can get parked closer to the stores and other businesses. Please know that I understand the challenges with managing a municipal property and hope there can be a solution that works for all. I did ask him a question, and he confirmed that they typically have 6 to 7 employees park in the municipal lot. He parks on the driveway, and they keep one spot open and properly marked for their disabled clients at the entry of their driveway. And that is what he asked to be shared with the board. Last chance for any other public comment? Well, perhaps we can discuss that piece before we close the public hearing, since that's the only comment we have. I can tell you that we did check the site plans for all of the businesses around the parking lot, and there's only one building that has in its site plan one, which is, it's the red building that has the Golden Walk in it. They have an apartment above, and they have the right to one spot in the parking lot for the person in the apartment above. So we will supply them with a permit to comply with that. But the other buildings do not have any formal agreement with the village for parking in the parking lot. When I was looking out in front of Zulch, it looks like there's easily 5 parking spots in front of his building on Prince Street by the sidewalk there that has a curb. I thought it was notable that he mentioned that it's not used very often, so it seems as though it's not an obvious place to park, which to me means that his employees could park there and leave the spots open in the parking lot, which is more obvious as a place to park when you're just coming for the first time. I mentioned to Mr. Zulch that I'd be happy to sit down with him and talk about how this might all work. You do have 4 hours, so you can go out for lunch and move your car to another spot. How do you all feel about it? What are you guys thinking?
I mean, it seems like that resource of those on-street parking spots being underutilized is, at least a partial solution for the situation that he's addressing here. Did he have any reaction to suggestion of using those spots?
We didn't get that far.
And then also, we're not prohibiting them from using the parking lot. We're just saying that they have to move their car every 4 hours, which, it has to be available to everybody, right? We're
Well,
not
that's-
supposed to be subsidizing one business. 7 parking spots is quite a bit. So, sorry, not to cut you off.
It's okay. It's all good. Charlie, any thoughts?
No, I mean, we have the law in the books. It makes sense to finally and appropriately, make it so and put up the signage accordingly.
Yeah, we did seem, because officially it's 2-hour parking. So the 4-hour seemed like a night you can go have a nice lunch, for example. That seemed to be a positive. Kim, did you have anything you wanted to add? Okay.
Mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
good, thank you.
Okay, so do you all feel comfortable proceeding?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sorry.
Okay, so let's close the public hearing. May I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved? Oh,
Thank you. Steve?
Second?
There you go. All in favor?
aye.
Aye. Great. So we have a resolution to adopt Local Law 5 of 2023 entitled Vehicle and Traffic Regulation Amendment, whereas a proposed 70, yes, thank you. A proposed form of Local Law E of 2023 entitled Vehicle and Traffic Regulation Amendment has been laid on the desks of the village trustees, whereas the amendments to Chapter 190 Vehicle and Traffic Code were introduced by the Board of Trustees of the Village of Red Hook on November 13, and whereas a public hearing was held on December 11th at Village Hall, notice of said hearing being duly published, and at which time all interested parties had an opportunity to be heard. Now therefore be it enacted by the Board of Trustees of the Village of Red Hook as follows. The Board hereby adopts the proposed local law as Local Law 5 of 2023, that the village clerk be and she hereby is directed to enter said local law into the minutes of this meeting and in the village code of the Village of Red Hook, given to give due notice of the adoption of said local law to the Secretary of State of New York and take all other actions as may be required by law. I'll take a motion to accept the resolution.
So moved.
Thank you, Charlie. Second?
Second?
Thank you, Steve. Any further comment or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, with that, we now have, we do have a moment that I would like to acknowledge the passing of Donald Hanson. And I know that he was on the planning board for a long time. Do you gentlemen know Don Hanson? But he contributed many years of service to the Village of Red Hook, and we wanted to acknowledge his passing, as is tradition with the Village of Red Hook Board, with a blank page in our minutes. Charlie, did you know Donald Hanson?
Yes, I think so.
I'm just thinking,
I've been
you're the
knocking
longest.
around committees and boards for a long time.
Yeah, I was going to say you've been, and I know. I figured you might be the one who would have overlapped with him. We do know that his late wife has a plaque on a tree in Abraham's Park, and we hope to add him to that plaque, or place a tree nearby or something at his request. So we're working on it. All right. Thank you, and thank you, Donald, for your service. Now we have some guests here tonight representing Archtop Fiber. And we asked, I think as I mentioned to Matt anyway, that we had a discussion. I shared some of what I had gathered from my meetings with you in the past, and we all thought it would be a perfect opportunity for you to come and present to us at a public meeting so that you can share your plans and what you're doing and why and how that's going to benefit the residents of the village, and it'll give us an opportunity to ask some questions. So please introduce yourselves, and so you're the camera behind is with Panda Channel 23. So perhaps if you stand at the podium, that will allow us to see you and the camera to see you as well. Sure.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, if you can flip it around, that'll work. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If you have an extra copy, I know the gentleman in the back is particularly interested. And if you don't, we can share.
Board, thank you very much for the opportunity to see you again. I'm Sean Bacai, I'm one of the founders of Archtop Fiber. And as I sort of introduced the first time we spoke, we were really first and foremost a group of old friends, many decades of experience in the broadband and deployment industry. We were the senior management team for resident communications. And we built and operated broadband systems really throughout the world. Most recently, we built out the entire state of Montana, the entire state of Wyoming, about a third of the But we have built large portions of the Midwest, and Warsaw, Krakow, Poland, Walfell, Santiago, Chile, and Amateur, so some very interesting places in the world, bringing internet and then ultimately fiber internet to places that are exceedingly rural and difficult to reach. We are all, the company was based in northern Westchester County in Purchase, and our patriarch and founder and my personal mentor was a guy named Bill Bresnan. When he passed away, the company was sold and has now become part of his charter spectrum. We have, since then, we have done a few things together and apart. I most recently ran a project in a division called Armstrong, where we built 4,800 miles of fiber between Corning, New York, and South. And decided that it was not a municipality. Grew up John Liberty in Harlem, New York, and would come up to Columbia County with my parents and observe breathing, well, trees. It has been a part of my heart ever since. I live in Rhinebeck now. So we sort of put together a plan and it's a, Tom and Steve get tired of me making this. They're two the senior members of our team and dear friends, and we have basically a three-legged stool. We acquired several 100-year-old family phone companies, the Germantown telephone company, Hancock telephone company. And these have been in the same family for a long years. And it is a testament to us that handle the controls after all that time. Well, so then we were upgrading them with the latest fiber optic, fiber to the home product, which is extraordinarily fast, very, very efficient, very, very green. It is 10 gig XGS PON, so fully 10 times as fast as anything you have available to you now, and you can go to our website to see the projected pricing. In addition to that upgrade of those networks, we are building out with our own capital the denser populated, it's about 2,500 miles of fiber optics to areas from Sand Lake, New York, all the way down, up and down both sides of the Hudson, all the way down to about Hyde Park, on one side, and then down through Kingston, and then across the Hudson Valley to Walker Valley, and then to the Delaware River, Hancock. And that's the second leg of the story, and that is all with private capital. Then there is the third leg and final leg, which is not instrumental to our success, but an opportunity for both the municipalities within which we're operating and ourselves. There's this virtual tidal wave of pandemic originated funding. It's called BEAD. It's $42 billion. About $1.3 billion is being spent over the next 3 to 5 years in New York, called New York Connect All. And that has identified tens of thousands of homes across the state that have access to either no broadband at all or substandard broadband. And we have partnered with counties, Dutchess County being one, Ulster being another. And it's a really simple, non-exclusive partnership. You can enter into it with any other provider as well, and it has absolutely no commitment by the village or county or town. And it just says broadband is really, really important. There's a ton of money coming. We should work together to make sure that the town or the municipality gets, can expand from what we have. It's really a density argument. If there are 30 homes and a mile of fiber, it costs so it's X thousands of dollars, but it pays and we pay for it ourselves. But if it's below 10 homes on that mile, the return on the investment on that is below what our investors require, because we have to pay pole attachments, fees annually, pay taxes, obviously, and some of these other things. And if we get fewer than, if we can anticipate 40% of the market, 4 homes per mile doesn't even pay what we have to pay Central Hudson for the access to the homes. But if we can subsidize the build-out with that public funding, we can basically artificially densify. I feel like George Bush had made up a word. We densified that by bringing the cost of capital down. Again, it is not a significant, it isn't essential to our success. Our plan does not contemplate it, but this money is coming, and we feel like if we don't approach it properly, it will sort of pass by, and that money will flow to other municipalities. Now, you can ask, well, why don't you just go ahead and get that money yourself? It is part of the analysis that the state will be doing on determining who gets that money, that the municipalities themselves have some stakeholder status in approving how that money gets spent effectively. We're providing the service that is identified by the FCC, the NTIA, and ultimately the state as the gold standard for what that deployment should be, which is fiber to the home, and in our case, 10 gigabit fiber to the home, which is good. Other companies provide hybrid fiber coaxial, like the cable companies do, or copper. All of these they work, but they are yesterday's technology. Our technology is, again, it's very green. Cable plant needs a power supply every 150 feet or so. The only electricity in our network, we send pulses of light through lasers down very, very thin pieces of glass, and we have some of that to show you. And
This can handle 9,000 plus customers.
yeah, so this small little fiber, each one of these is in there, and this, you can sort of hand it around, and it is
You want to see it?
through those pulses of light. And so every 20 kilometers or so, we put a hub site. The hub site that would serve Red Hook is being constructed as we speak in Rhinebeck. I actually believe it was this ad today. And we'll serve all the way up through Germantown, where we have the next hub site. The company applied for and received a certificate of public conveyance and need for a competitive phone provider as well. We have started construction in 4 different distinct areas. We're building in Saugerties, Kingston, Warwick Valley, and Germantown now.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but could you just turn on that mic? They're having a hard time hearing you on Zoom. I just want to make sure everybody
okay,
can hear
I'm
your
sorry.
presentation. If you just turn it on and start speaking, start speaking.
start
It'll-
speaking.
Okay.
it'll go. You keep going. Go with confidence.
All right, great.
There you go.
Tom, how about that? They can't hear me. It's a shock to everybody, I'm sure. So we, as I said, we are in construction. We have the authorizations we need by the state to enter the right-of-way, and we are in the process of applying for and seeking permits from the pole utility companies to have access. I'm sure, there's joint use of the poles, and so electric's on the top, telephone companies on the bottom. There's some middle spaces for fiber providers and other providers, the cable companies included, and we will be a competitive enterprise in this market. And it really, without patting ourselves on the back too much, it is sort of exactly what municipalities hope to have, in that there is a competitive provider. 1 provider is good, 2 providers is better, 3 providers is even better than that, right? With competition, better service arrives and lower prices.
Can I just take you back a minute?
Certainly.
So each one of these little wires has the capacity of 9,000 customers?
No,
It's the whole it's the combination of
that entire bundle.
this bundle?
As we say.
Got it,
And
okay.
they split out 1 by 32 splits. We can get into the architecture.
That-
That's sort of Tom's
We can have that as a
thing.
separate conversation. I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Certainly. We will glaze you over with the details of our network architecture. And there is another technology which we are using, because since when we first started the New York project in Corning, the average cost to attach per mile to pole companies, a process called Make Ready, was about $4,000 per mile. It has gone up well over $20,000 a mile. You can guess that there was sort of a, in the increased demand to be on the poles, the costs to pay for what, we believe is deferred maintenance by the electric utilities. They are in a mad rush to get us to pay for as much of those poles that have been there for quite a long and that kind of thing. And in that process, it makes us look for alternatives to being on the poles. One of which is a process we call micro trenching or narrow trenching, and we have some photographs that we'd like to show you. And we have received permission from, again, everything from counties like Sullivan and Ulster County and Dutchess County to smaller municipalities as well, townships and villages. And basically, we don't even shut down a street. We run a very narrow saw down the street. It cuts a 1-inch wide cut. We're doing it right now in Saugerties. It goes down about 11 inches. We only cut in the morning what we can fill in the afternoon. And we put the narrow conduit. And if you give me that, you'll notice this is a 288 count fiber, and it fits right down the conduit. And that conduit goes into the
To the trench.
into the trench. And then we cover it back up and then patch it with something called mastic, which is a identified reinstatement that you see very often. That's the trench.
Covered?
No, that
Just
is
that's an
cut.
open trench, okay. Looking
There
for
is
a
another,
closed trench.
the cover is about 6 inches wide to create more waterproof, more durability. And I think communities tend to like it because there's just not more stuff on the poles in front of their houses. It's, as I said, we don't even shut down the street. We put cones out because you can drive, even the open trench, you can drive right over because it's only 1 inch in breadth. So,
And I think on those pictures, it also shows you the handholds that we use to distribute to the houses. There's-
Don't you call those flower pots?
They are
Yes.
flower pots, and then handholds, we use a combination of them. Basically the same thing, but we do not use pedestals. You know how we're used to seeing the green boxes that stick out of the ground? These are all flush mounted, so I think we put a couple of pictures in there to show you what the flower pots and the handholds will look like.
And how many of the flower pots or handholds do you have?
It depends on the density of the street, but typically we try to split every 3 or 4 houses if we can get on the property line. What we try to do is be as the least invasive as possible and not do as many, it all depends on the architecture of, or, the street density. And we'll typically split property lines so that it's out in the right of way, and then we can feed both houses or 4 houses, depending on how the setup is.
Would you go across the street, or is it always on the same side of
No,
the
we
street?
do cross the street as well, so we have crossings that go, along the road. I think there is one picture showing that they're crossing the street, yes.
Well, actually, it's not necessarily crossing the street, but because the other question came up is, okay, so you do the trench in the road, you then create your flower pot, and then from the pot, do you trench into someone's house, or do you go back up on the pole?
It's a success-based deployment that we do. So our flower pot will be in the green space, or in the right-of-way. And then if a customer, a house on that street wants the service, they call it in, and then we trench from that flower pot to their house when they ask for it. We don't preempt it, we do not deploy to every person's house until they request it. And then we use a different technology to get to, to put the underground from the flower pot to the customer's house. We don't have to, destroy their yard trying to get in there. We have a small vibratory plow. Some people call it a slit trench. But it's almost like if somebody puts in a dog fence, how they go around like that, and I don't have one with me, but the drop wire that goes to a customer's house, as you can imagine, that one cable that can handle 2,000, what feeds your house is just a thin, smaller than my pinky that's going to go in there. And that would happen once the customer actually requests service.
And how far down does the trench go?
On average, about 11 inches.
And have you run into any, are you concerned at all about freezing?
We are not. It stays in the monolith of the roadbed. So this is used all over the world. It's used in Alaska. It's used in the Rocky Mountains where it's hotter summers and colder winters here. So it stays with the heave of the roadbed. Again, it's water impervious. So, we've had handholds or flower pots that are full of water and frozen and still not impacting the service because, again, it's all dielectric. Again, it's a very durable, very, very green technology. We use about 1/30th of the power to get around we're particularly pleased with that technology. And
Do you ever have issues with, if we do road repairs, have you ever had issues with the municipality? Like, would it be on you? Would it be on us?
100% on us.
Got it.
Both the MOU that we're going to be showing you and this, there is no commitment from the village or the town whatsoever. We obviously, through the engines and the state one-call situation, we are aware of what's happening. We tend to work very closely with your departments of Public Works, and it is very rare that you will mill down below 4 inches or so to recap the roads.
Yeah.
Occasionally, we're working in a place in Saugerties right now where they have laid blacktop on top of blacktop on top. And we can't even get down to the roadbed. We're actually cutting 11 inches and it's still blacktop.
Yeah.
And that, because if someone were to come in and mill off 1.5 feet of blacktop to get down to the roadbed,
Yeah.
we could be impacted in that situation. But the beautiful thing about this technology is it is shallow enough to be very, very efficient and shallow enough where it doesn't impact water or sewer or gas or anything else, but deep enough to stay below that roadbed and not be impacted by the periodic milling and resurfacing.
And so you will always be going in the pavement of the road. You wouldn't be going on the side where maybe a sidewalk would be put later? Or is that where the flower boxes would be?
They will be in the green space, usually either between the sidewalk and the road curb, or if there is a right-of-way inside of the sidewalk there. If there is green space, we prefer to vibratory plow there. It's cheaper than, and frankly, less invasive. Your Department of Public Works generally will prefer us to be in the green space versus the roadbed. But one thing we won't do in particular, again, Tom lives in Rhinebeck and Red Hook, Rhinebeck as well. He's a lifer up here. I am not. But we're not cutting our sidewalks, right? I mean, it just,
Well, we don't have there's a lot of places where we don't have sidewalks. So that's sort of my question is whether or not would it prevent later putting in a sidewalk if there were ever, if that's sort of the,
it wouldn't.
question I
And there
have.
would be what we call forced relocates or reloads, and we deal with those all the time. It's just a matter of course. If you were to need to dig up below, there are what we put a locate wire in all of our trenches. So, a simple pulse will show where our stuff is, and if we need to move it, we will.
And it looks like from the pictures, you're not right on the edge of the road. It looks like you're 3-4 feet in to the middle of the road?
It all depends on that particular road. They had, the drainage was there, so we felt it was better to go out so that we went past the drain basins instead of going and then seeing us come out and go along. That's where it gets to where we work directly with the DPW. And, our crews, they contact them regularly because it's a real, we have to have that open lines of communication with them so they know where we are and, what will impact, and then get their take on, where they want us to go, so that's basically you'll have the say in that. We try to stay right up against the curb, if that makes sense, or, you can actually go down the middle of the road. Some people would like it, down if there's, on a line. It all depends on what you have. So each one is different, each deployment, or even each road, it all depends.
Yeah, we've done creative things like there are many roads that will have a cast concrete curb, and the seam between the blacktop and the concrete gutter will cut that seam open, put it there, and then we go, so it looks like it's not even there. Other times where there is a fog line, they call that white stripe along the side of the road, we'll cut down the center of that fog line. The reinstatement will involve re-putting a new fog line on. Again, it disappears under that. There are plenty of creative ways we do, and it really is ultimately up to the DPWs and their aesthetic and safety and durability of the roadbed.
And I think you've confirmed that at this point, you're still going to be up on the poles on the state roads.
Yes, the state DOT has their own opinions about such things, and other states have done statewide approvals. We're in discussions right now with the legislature and there are some senators, including our local senator here, who are proposing a bill which would direct the state to accept this, because it's just a cheaper, faster, better way of doing it. And if, it just, not doing it because that's not the way we've always done it, it's just sort of an unacceptable response, but we'll get there eventually.
Gotcha. As you know, the center of our village is 2 state roads over which we have limited control. So I was just curious as to where you were in those discussions.
And there we would either be in a green space or be up on the poles.
Gotcha. Okay.
We can share with you the MOU that we had. Again, I think
Actually, I think Matt had sent that to us. We'll have a conversation, and I think the MOU piece we'll review. And we have a meeting next week, and then I'll bring that all back to the board, and we'll have that conversation. What I really wanted for tonight was the opportunity to share, who you are, what you're doing, why you're doing it, how you're doing it. Because, for the village, I think, and you probably know better than I think we're reasonably well covered in terms of internet access. But the real positive to you all coming in would be to create that competition, which...
Very much so. And I think you're right. The likelihood that there being BEAD money available to the village is probably pretty low.
Yeah.
There are some other sort of sub-programs within the Connect All program which may get to Section 8 housing or get to, which is not a lot of, in Red Hook either.
Right.
But some. And so there are ways our engineering firm, and one of these things, if I were to go and ultimately try and engineer the entire Hudson Valley, the cost of that would be prohibitive. So we try and figure out who our partners are going to be by this expression of interest, which is, again, not binding. It has no term. You can cancel it at any time. But it allows me to then go back to my finance team and say, hey, we're going to engineer the Village of Red Hook for the BEAD program, and it's going to cost me $30,000 to do that. Where if I didn't have the MOU, it would be hard for me to spend that money without the foreknowledge that we at least had a willing partner in that application. And that's really the sum total of why we need it. And again, there is no cost to apply to the village other than the cost of designing and submitting the application, which is entirely on us. And ultimately, if the grant is awarded and you change your mind, we could all say thanks, but no thanks. So it's a really, you might as well throw the application in because you just never know what is going to.
So that leads me to a question, and I don't know how much we've talked about it, but we do have 2 public parks at the moment. We have Abraham's Park, which is a 7-acre park. It's basically, right now, it's grass with a paved path through the middle of it. We do actually have a task force looking at a master plan. If we were interested in having internet access in the park, what would that look like?
It's a great question, and we are actually inside of our agreement with the Village of Rhinebeck. It includes all of the village buildings and parks. The city of Kingston has approached us to provide service with, we have a carrier-grade Wi-Fi radio system called a Meraki that we use, and it would be a commercial agreement between us and the village.
And what would it look like? What would it look like physically? Like, where would you put things? Would you have to? The Wi-Fi goes how far, for example? Obviously, Wi-Fi is the logical thing, but do you need spots throughout, or?
Depends on the size of the park. We have done them, frankly, everywhere, including Yellowstone Park and, some others. So obviously, if it's a large, several hundred acre.
Yeah, I don't think we have several hundred acres in our village, so that's
Right.
not an issue for
But
us.
if it is a, 100-foot by 100-foot public space, it would really be one radio, and we would locate it on one of them power poles, or ultimately have to put up a pole ourselves, put a drop to that pole. What we need is an ONT, we call it, because we give everything an acronym all the time.
Always.
So it's optical network termination device. We'd put that ONT at the pole, then put a cable up the pole to a radio, which is a relatively small device, about this big. And again, it's carrier grade, it's multi-gig capable, so your Wi-Fi speeds on your cell phone from that radio would be more than.
Gotcha. Okay.
And for your park that I know the park, and we would probably go underground and go along the trail. And, the engineers would have to come to see, because trees impact the signal and stuff. But I could see probably 3 units possibly that we would put up there to cover the entire park. But that gets designed once once we're in that agreement, they'll go and they'll walk the whole thing out to see what the coverage is. But, again, we would do it just like how we're talking, like to try to be the most least impactful and then follow along with that path. But to me, right off the top of my head, seems like that would be the best way. We would want to hit that along the trail all the way through.
Well, as I mentioned, we do have a task force that is working towards getting input and ultimately ending with a master plan. So it feels like when we are at a point where we have a master plan, there's an area that's sort of a logical potential amphitheater. And so if we had a little spot sort of at the bottom that had a little structure, maybe you could put a thing on top of that structure if we chose to go that way. I mean, we're at the very beginnings of this. So it'd probably be,
We would love to, I didn't mean to cut you off, but we would love to work with the task force if they wanted any input from us, or, with that would be great.
got it. Thank you. That's helpful to understand the process in any case.
We tend to be joiners by nature. So,
Well, it's great that you're local. The fact that you've been to our Path to Nowhere.
And you said some, oh, I'm sorry.
I think it's worth noting that we are building out our corporate offices at the Kingston IBM iPark, 87-year-old Fallon, with actually the first tenants of that building. We just passed 50 employees on our way to 85 there. They're all well-paying engineering and ultimately there'll be customer care there, and we're putting in the laboratory to test equipment. So the furthest, if you call 1-800-ARCHTOP, the furthest you will get would be Kingston, New York. So I think, and we're particularly proud of being in the communities where we serve. It's been a recipe for our success. We are always more successful when we are within the areas we serve. Bill Bresnan used to tell me, if you can have a conversation about the weather with the person on the phone and it's the same weather, you're just about far enough.
Sounds good.
Can you share information about what type of service subsidies might be available for households which fall, at a certain level of need where perhaps,
Certainly.
service may not be affordable at the regular price?
Yeah, going back to that joiner thing, I was on the FCC committee during the pandemic, which created what's now called the ACP program. And there are various triggers that make a $30 subsidy available to that particular household, school lunch program. In the past, you could just certify that you've been profoundly impacted by the pandemic. That has changed a little bit. I will tell you that I'm no longer on that committee as a user of it, and we're not 100% sure what ultimately, as pandemic funding starts to wane, how much that is going to stay. There is something called the Lifeline program that the FCC produces, and my guess would be that $30 subsidy is going to be shrunk down to some more fundable federal subsidy. But we are a participant in the ACP program, and anybody who is eligible within the village of Red Hook would be able to avail themselves of that subsidy through our service. The way it works is you get billed the lesser amount, and then we apply to the FCC for the reimbursement of that. Additionally, the Governor Hochul is considering the use of that $1.3 billion that the state has received or appropriated for some form of additional subsidy program, but the specifics of that program have not really been articulated at this point yet. But I can assure you that if it does get passed in the law and it is a program, we will be among the first to participate.
Any other questions?
Just that you mentioned some Mariaki, was it what you said?
Meraki.
Meraki, thank you.
Miraki.
Thank you.
And that's just a brand of radio that we use in the public outdoor Wi-Fi deployments.
Awesome, thank you so much.
Okay, any other?
One last question. I know, typically with digital technology, either you have a signal or you don't, but you mentioned that the hub would be in Rhinebeck. Is there any impact on service level as you move away from the hub, and distances start getting a little bit further?
Man, I love this question. No. The thing is, the beautiful thing about light is we really honestly don't know the limits of it yet. I mean, Einstein's wonderful theories of relativity notwithstanding, we just simply don't know the speed or the distance that we can get from it. The more we pump through it, the faster it goes. We are currently testing cards that we can replace in our chassis that at our 25, 50, and up to 100 gig cards, and the distances don't fade. We actually put larger lasers than we need, but there are, you can have too much light or too little light. We create a 20-kilometer loop length in what's they're called, again, another acronym. I can bore you to death with this, but they're called PONs, or passive optical networks. And these 20-kilometer PONs get looped out from the hub site, and we can put 35-mile lasers on them or even higher. We tend to just dial it perfectly, but it is not a distance or weather or sunspot affected architecture. It's why we like it as much as we do. And as I say, it's the very latest. It's, you can get it in Seattle, can't get it in New York City yet. It's XGS PON, it's called.
Any other questions? Given that we're so small this evening, Don, do you have any questions that you want to ask?
Just one from the main fiber that you put in the road to get to these flower pots. Is that more micro trenching?
It actually, if you'd like to see the photographs, you can see that the flower pots are sort of dog-legged off in the green space right next to the road. So that is a flower pot, that is the micro trench. That is what it looks like once fully repaired.
Put it down the middle of the road, it could
Higher.
be like we lined the road.
That is the vacuum saw, just equipment truck. So the whole entire parade is only 3 vehicles length, and you can see it doesn't even take the whole road. And we tend to cut about 1,500 feet a day. We'll cut 15 if we're in front of your house in the morning. When you can come home that night, the trench will be filled. We don't leave it open at the end of the day.
Anybody else? Question? Okay.
Thank you.
No, thank you very much for coming. I really appreciate it. I think it's helped all of us to understand a little bit more, and so we obviously have more work to do on our side, and we'll, in my head, I keep thinking, all right, what's missing? Where's the downside?
Where's the
So
catch?
that's- Yeah, where's
Too
the
good
catch?
to be true, it usually is, right?
So I appreciate the fact that the Village of Rhinebeck has gone first on our side of the river, so I
Gary
can,
has been, he's an educated consumer. He worked in technology for
Yes,
a long time, so
exactly.
it was a pleasure dealing with him.
yes. So, and I can also just say publicly, I appreciate Matt's persistence. He does a good job. Always with a smile. I will say always with a smile, which I appreciate. But thank you very much for coming and for the presentation. And obviously, we'll be in touch. And
Well, I live right up the road if you need me to come back for any
perfect.
sub-meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's great.
Appreciate it.
Oh, and
Yeah.
can take your goodies.
Thank you.
Did we get everything? Yes, terrific. Thank you. All right. Yeah, and I guess you did send me a photo that was just for the village, and it looked like you pretty much covered the entire village
Yes.
in your
Yeah, I
plan.
think we gave you the maps.
Is that, I just didn't look that closely.
Those are the
I
towns,
think
yeah.
it's got the
You-
town, it has everyone.
We have a map, and I may not have just shared it, so I will share it for
Great.
sure. But it looked like it was literally
It
everything.
is.
Okay,
We only
that's what I
cut
thought.
Tivoli.
The only thing that's not on this map for some odd reason is Tivoli,
Is-
and we're building Tivoli as well. We just
Oh,
decided to leave off this map
Tivoli's
for
off, Tivoli's off there by themselves, so
Yeah.
it makes sense.
I thought that was deliberate.
Thank you again.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time. Okay. So the next thing on the agenda is, this is related to our pay week and when it ends. Just to go back, as a reminder, it's not clear to me when this happened, but our police department, their pay week ends on a Thursday, and and the highway and village employees, their pay week ends on a Friday. It's not helpful to have two different ends of pay week for as few employees as we have. The tricky part is, so we pay every 2 weeks. And so when we make this change, there'll be one paycheck that has one less day in it because we need to pull it back. So the determination was it's better to have everyone move to ending on Thursday than ending on Friday. The benefit to that is if there's a Monday holiday and you have to do all the payroll on Friday, you have Friday to get all the proper information, et cetera. You're not estimating how much time, et cetera. And nothing else would change. So right now, we submit payroll on Monday for everybody, and everyone receives their pay on Wednesday. And so that would stay the same. The only thing we need to do is to move back the highway department and the village employees back to ending on Thursday instead of ending on Friday. So to reiterate, because this gets confusing to me, the one payroll where we make the switch, the full-time employees will have one less day in their pay. And that, because this is a convenience for the village, it's a one-time shot, and also discussing with our labor attorney and also the highway union representative, it made sense to give all full-time employees a bonus personal day that we would add to this payroll so that they have their full 14 days or 10 days if you're looking at work days in this paycheck. And so the cost to the village is, and I didn't bring my worksheet, but it's about $800 to $900 for this one additional personal day or bonus day. It is my strong recommendation that we proceed this way. I think this is a fair way to handle it for the full-time employees. And if you think about it, if someone is counting on everything in their paycheck, it can be very disruptive to have a day less in their paycheck. I have discussed this with the Highway Department Union, and they are in agreement with this proposal. And I believe it's fair to do same for the village employees. Even though they do not have a union, I think it's fair to treat everyone in the same way. So what I am proposing, based on all of that, is to provide one additional personal leave day to the highway and the non-union village full-time employees, employed on the date of the change as a one-time benefit that would be affected by the change. And again, it just reiterates that this is once. It's not something that becomes part of the union contract or anything like that. Do you guys have any questions, any concerns about what I'm proposing here? Okay, then I will take a motion to accept this resolution.
So moved.
Thank you, Steve. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Melcorca. Any further discussion or questions? I will add that this is one of the very last things we need to fully change over to the ADP time and attendance program that we have. We've worked out a lot of the bugs, but this one's a big bug that we need to get through. So, all right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you very much. Okay, next item. Oh, so the next item is the Dutchess County has announced changes to their bus routes. And in those changes, so the loop bus is the county bus that comes up to the village of Red Hook, and it ends in Tivoli and then heads back down. And what their proposed changes are is basically to eliminate the county bus C line service north of Rhinebeck. Their end point would be Tops in Rhinebeck. I think we talked about this at our workshop, if I recall, and we'd asked Melcorca to write a letter on behalf of the village to express our dismay. I have spoken with a few people. There are information sessions. There was one tonight in Millbrook. There are 2 tomorrow in Poughkeepsie, and then there's one in Rhinebeck on Thursday at the Village of Rhinebeck Town Hall at 6 o'clock that I am planning to attend. I know of at least a couple of village residents who are planning to attend. The county has indicated that they're doing this because of low ridership. And of course, we have lesser population, so it makes sense that we would have lower ridership. I'm disappointed, deeply disappointed, that instead of reaching out to us to say, can we talk about ways where we could make some adjustments to increase ridership, the immediate answer is to say, well, we'll just pull the service altogether. The other thing that I'm very concerned about is many of the county services that the county provides, mental health services, emergency shelter services, they're all in Poughkeepsie. And many people who are in need of those services would not necessarily have access to Poughkeepsie without a public bus. So it then starts to feel like county services are no longer available to the people in Red Hook. And that does not feel like the right way to go. So I don't know and we also felt it was important to share this letter, not just with the Dutchess County Transportation Council, but also with what we have here is that the DPW Commissioner, Robert Balkind? Yes. Also the Director of Public Transit, Michael Grattini, the Office of County Executive. The current county executive is William O'Neill. He is the outgoing, and then the incoming county executive, Sue Serino. Our Congressman, Pat Ryan, our former county exec, Mark Molinaro, our state senator, Michelle Hinchy, and our state assembly member, Sarah Hanna Shrestha, and also our county legislator, Chris Munn, with the proposal to send this letter to all. Would love to have you all take a look at the letter. Did I make copies? I might not have made copies.
I don't know.
I probably didn't because I intended to. But what I'd like to do is to, maybe we can do it this way. I can send the letter out to all of you this evening. And if you can get back by end of day tomorrow, first thing Wednesday, to say yes, and then Melcorca can sign it on behalf of the village. Does that sound acceptable? Okay. And I will, if you want, I can also make copies before you go tonight. But this really, it just says we are concerned and we would like them to reconsider their plan to eliminate the county bus C-line service. Any other thoughts or questions?
I just had a question. I'm looking at the email you forwarded from Christopher Munn that was talking about the flex bus curb to curb as being $6 one way. Do we know what the cost of the loop is currently, so we can figure out like the that financial difference? Because I feel like $6 one way is quite a hefty lift for somebody needing transportation.
And the other, so the, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, that's a really good question, and I don't have an answer at this moment for what it, does anyone know what the loop bus costs? 250? We're thinking 250.
But technically, the Flex Ride is supposed to be like an Uber service that you have to, they recommend that you book it 30 days in advance. And technically, they don't need to offer it to anybody that is outside of 3/4 of a mile of an active bus line. So technically, Dutchess County can choose to not offer it to us after this plan is put in motion. Will be totally without any public transportation. So,
Which is clearly a question I will be asking on Thursday to clarify what the flex bus system really is, and what they really are proposing. But you're absolutely, I thought $6 a ride was pretty hefty as well.
and I don't believe that they are publicizing how many how many drivers they'll have, how available it will be, how they prioritize. It's a first come, first serve, and it's really set up to allow them to comply with ADA regulations from the, federal government. So it's sort of this thing that they're offering that I don't actually think will be available to any of our residents.
And our resourceful village clerk looked it up, and it's $1.75 for the bus, and there's a reduced rate of 75 cents.
And I believe
So it's
it's
a big-
free for
big
students.
hit.
It would be a full
College
day.
students.
You were right, too. It's a full day for 250.
So you can go like on as many bus loops as you want for one day?
Yeah, for 250.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, it just seems disappointing that in this moment of thinking more public transportation is good, and we have our community needs assessment that was just done, and transportation was one of, and how did you put it in here, Mel Cork? It was one of the most frequently mentioned items of need was transportation.
During the interviews, yes.
And so this seems to be going in the opposite direction of that. Okay, so I will forward this to everyone, and then if you can get back to us by end of day tomorrow, first thing Wednesday, and we'll send it out. We'll send it out on Wednesday.
Yeah, I don't know, because one of the stops is in Bard College, like near the center of campus, but there's already the Bard shuttle that takes people.
The BARD shuttle is for BARD students and faculty only.
Yeah, so I don't know. Like,
Bard-
there's already one in campus.
BARD family, actually, BARD families can't take the BARD bus. They have to take the loop bus. Yeah, that would be to have BARD be the one to sort of do the local shuttle. Was that your idea?
That or just maybe like advertising and moving the stops better, because I know there's a bunch of high schools that want to public transportation that are not maybe wearing blue bus just because like, kids don't want to go to town hall, a lot of kids don't want to go to bars.
So you're making the point that communication about the bus service would actually increase its ridership when considering moving where the bus stop is?
Yeah, and I feel like in bars, it's like, the bar shuttle, like, people have like cars or bikes, I don't know, for like 2 modes of transportation.
Yeah. Good suggestion, thank you. I will bring that forth. Okay, anything else? All right. All right, the next item is the Cherry and Grave Street water upgrades bid. We had a bid opening on Thursday, and we received 10 bids on December 7th at Village Hall. And this is the Cherry and Grave Street upgrades project. This is to replace the water mains in Cherry and Grave Street. And then the bid summary table, which I need to read them all into the record. The lowest bidder was Amity Construction Corporation, and they are a responsive and qualified bidder, as this is the recommendation from our village engineer, Delaware Engineering. And they recommend that the base bid, along with bid alternates 1 and 2, be awarded as follows. Base bid, $628,085. Bid alternate 1, $2,500. Bid alternate 2, $372,975 for a bid total of $1,003,560. And let me clarify what the alternates are. The base bid is 750 feet of water main and associated items on Graves, and 550 feet of water main on Cherry from Route 9 to Grave Street, which is a total of 1,300 feet of water main. Bid alternate 1 is connection of new main to existing main at the intersection of Cherry and Graves. Bid alternate 2 is 1,050 feet of water main and associated items from Cherry and Graves to Cherry and East Market Street. And then bid alternate 3 is curb and associate items for all of Cherry and Graves Street. And so the engineer is recommending that we do, based on the pricing, not include bid alternate 3 for the curbing on the paving that would be done when this is complete. So I do need to read the other bids. We have H. Osterhout Excavating. Base bid, $746,693. Bid alternate 1, $12,500. Bid alternate 2, $474,003. I'm not going to read the bid alternate 3 since we're not taking that. Louisi and Brothers Construction. Base bid, $707,990. Bid alternate 1, $15,000. Bid alternate 2, $459,100. Sunup Construction. Base bid, $797,150. Bid alternate 1, $15,000. Bid alternate 2, $435,125. Arnold Construction, $952,400 for the base bid. No bid on alternate 1, and $565,125 for alternate 2. Merritt Construction, $802,350 for the base bid. No bid for alternate 1, $478,515 for alternate 2. Trinity Construction, $753,533 for the base bid, $14,000 for alternate 1, $536,750 for alternate 2. Grant Street Construction, $949,000 for the base bid, no bid for alternate 1, $588,750 for alternate 2. Contech Construction, $1,111,950 for the base bid, $26,950 for alternate 1, $711,975 for alternate 2, and then T&A Construction, $1,061,500 for base bid, no bid for the alternate 1, $718,950 for bid alternate 2.
Where are you reading? 250.
Sorry, said a lot of numbers. The last bid alternate 2, $718,250.
That's it?
Okay.
You got it.
Couldn't even tell you, couldn't even tell you what I said. That was a lot of numbers. All that to, we obviously have this on a chart, if anyone would like to look at it more closely. The other piece that's important to know, this is the third project that we have received bids on from our WIA project. In your packet, you have on the back a summary of the projects, and it starts with the original estimate. So the SCADA controls upgrade was the first project that we bid out. The original estimate for the construction portion was $140,000. We accepted the lowest bidder at $416,700. The next was the tank rehabilitation, which the original construction estimate was $267,500, and we accepted the low bidder of $373,500. We did expect that the actual bids would come in higher. We have a fourth project, which is the booster pump or town interconnect, and the original estimate for that was $220,000. Clearly, we are not going to be doing that project. There was also a cut and cap well number 4, because well number 4 has very minor traces of PFAS, which is well below the federal standard. But there are traces, and we are not using that well, and this would be to formally cap it off at $10,000. There are engineering costs, other costs of the bond and local counsel and a financial advisor, and then miscellaneous. And there was a contingency put in of $276,000. So if we put all of the contingency into the construction portion, that puts us, the original estimate was 1.8 million. The WIA grant is 60% of the project cost, which is 1,080,000, and that will remain the same. So if we accept this bid, that puts the total project at $2,037,260. And I have confirmed with the engineer that the number that is there is their number. That's their number to cover both the drawings that they've done and also the oversight of the projects. So originally, the amount to be financed by the village from the water fund was $720,000. This would put it at $957,960. I did 260. What did I say?
You've got your affinity for nines today.
Oh, well, there you go. Must be the marketing background. And so I just put in a couple of numbers in the original project, there was a note around a 30-year financing at 3.5%. That feels low given the current interest rates. So I just threw in 4.5%. We have a couple of items. I don't have a specific answer for you at the moment, but for example, in our budget for the water fund, we have budgeted $545,000 in water sales, so sales receipts. Last year, we ended the year at $575,000, so $30,000 higher. So we've got a budget of our expenses that doesn't account for that $30,000. So if you take that $30,000, and let's take the highest number there, assuming the actual project at 58. If you take 30,000 out of that, you're at 28,000 annually that needs to be covered. We also have a fund balance that we can use that I need to clarify, but just at the end of last year, we had 125,000 that was surplus from the year. So we have a variety of means of covering, and at the last resort, we could increase our water rates, but I would prefer not to if there's any way we can not increase our water rates. I am going to propose that we do go ahead and accept this bid for Cherry and Grave Street for several reasons. One of which, I guess I'll also point out, we have $50,000 for water repairs in our budget, and the more we replace and upgrade to new, the less major projects we will have in those water repairs. That should be more than enough, particularly after we replace that quadrant of water mains, because the southwest quadrant was replaced in 2016, and much of the northwest quadrant is newer. The remaining quadrant that does need to be addressed is the southeast quadrant. So I'm going to propose that we go ahead and accept this. This is also related to, in that area, it's an older system, and so if there's any lead in any of the pipes and any of the goosenecks, they will all be replaced, which we will need to do in any case. Unfortunately, I don't think these things are going to get any cheaper anytime soon. So I would like to make a motion that we accept this, that we accept Amity Construction Corporation with alternate 1 and 2 for $1,003,560. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Charlie. Any further questions, discussion?
I just had a question.
Yeah.
Since it's recommended to go take their bid without the bid alternative 3, are we gonna do a new call for that once the project is done to get all the curb work done, or?
No, you don't. It's not required to have curbs. The benefit is it contains the paving, and so as things go forward, if you repave, it keeps it contained within the area you originally intended to pave. It's not essential. It's a nice thing. It really is a nice thing to do. I will tell you, if the former deputy mayor were here, he would be insisting heavily, but I think at this point, with the costs of what we have, it doesn't feel like it would be the right choice to go ahead with it. with the curbs.
I mean, I think that's reasonable enough, given that all the work done on the water mains in Garden and Fraley and no curbs there.
Actually, I think they do have curbs there.
Well, they've got those flush curbs, right?
That's what this is.
Okay. Seems a lot for a flush curb, but there you go.
Agreed? I mean, I think we could go back and do them later if we so chose that it was important. I mean, it's better to do it all at once when you're doing it, but it's not essential to the fundamental portion of the project.
Right. And this is not going to get any cheaper.
No. Any other questions? Then I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Okay, T-Mobile. So, a little background. T-Mobile approached the village saying they wanted to do some maintenance. And we have a consultant who works with us on all things cell tower, because T-Mobile has equipment on the top of the water tower. We have T-Mobile, we have Sprint, we have Verizon, and we have, who's the other one? It'll come to me in a minute. AT&T, that's the other one. And we get revenue for that because they put their equipment up on top so that they can do their cell phone thing. So T-Mobile came and our consultant looked at it and said, this isn't just swapping out, this is actually an enhancement of the equipment that they will have at the top of our tower. And he recommended that we ask for additional rent for that. And so this, what you have in your packet is an amendment to our lease agreement that would add $200 a month for the additional equipment that they are proposing to install. Our consultant felt that was a reasonable amount to ask for. I think it's appropriate to ask for more if they're going to be adding equipment. And so I am asking for a motion to authorize me to sign this lease agreement.
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Has the consultant provided benchmarks relative to that 200, demonstrating that that's a reasonable price for the incremental equipment that's going up there?
Not specifically. However, we are currently getting $2,150 a month plus $100 per month for annual maintenance of shared generator, which we don't have. The generator, we actually have a reserve fund to install that. That generator has not yet been installed. It was his opinion based on because it's a slight increase in the equipment. It's not a significant increase, but it is an increase. So proportionally, I mean, that's basically 10%. But no, I don't have anything other, though I will say that I do feel reasonably confident that he would tell us to ask for more if he felt it was appropriate. And again, initially, they offered nothing, so. Any other question?
And he gets a cut of it, right? So that it's in his best interest to get the best rate.
Yes. Yes.
And this doesn't change the commencement date, right? Since it's a 5-year lease and then can go 5 consecutive leases before it goes to year. This
Correct.
just changes the amount due, correct?
Correct. And also, just to let you know, I think T-Mobile bought Sprint, I believe. And it's probable that Sprint will go away, so we may lose that revenue. Doesn't mean there won't be a new opportunity, but hasn't happened yet, but that's possible. Any other questions? Discussion? Then I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, thank you. Okay, I do not have budget adjustments for this evening. Our inimitable treasurer is at some form of wonderful event this evening. She'll give us a full report on when she returns. So I am going to read the treasurer's report. These are account balances as of November 30th, 2023. The general fund has $1,419,343.71. Water fund is $506,939.52. Payroll clearing account, $33,829.47. Sewer fund has $99,543.29. Hard scrabble has $4,638.68. Village Green has $9,046.32. Health insurance is $10,588.81. Petty cash is $52.93. Our reserve checking balances are Fire Department, $7,616.73. All of the reserve funds are at M&T Bank. Police, $17,298.30. USDA, $140,750.20. Highway, $29,055.63. Snow Reserve, $3,323.83. Tower Reserve, $17,950.93. Unemployment, $7,120.41. Court Reserve, $3,343.20. Office Reserve is $985.67. Monthly expenses for the month of November for general fund was $130,663.82. For the water fund, it was $73,668.20. Payroll clearing account, $2,366.55. Sewer, $22,466.27. Submitted by Lori Urban, our treasurer, as read by me. Any questions? Then I'll take a motion to accept the treasurer's report.
So moved.
Thank you, Steve. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Charlie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Okay, my reports. Police report for the month of November. There were 294 incidents. 177 were in the village of Red Hook, 98 were in the town of Red Hook, and 19 in the village of Tivoli. There were 102 water tower security checks. There were 87 uniform traffic tickets, and of those, 54 were in the village of Red Hook, 24 were in the town of Red Hook, and 9 were in the village of Tivoli. Parking tickets, there were 36 in the village of Red Hook, none in the town of Red Hook, and 4 in the village of Tivoli. There were 8 arrests. There were 3 in the village of Red Hook, 2 in the town of Red Hook, and 3 in the village of Tivoli. The fire department, I do not have the October report, but I know it's being worked on, and I will certainly have it for the January meeting. And then, so just under personnel and payroll, just to reiterate that the resolution that we just passed to shift everybody having a pay week ending on Thursday, that will go into effect at our next pay date, which will be payroll ending December 21st, because last week was the pay week. So we will be in good shape to start the new year, new calendar year, with everybody on the same page. And then just a communications note, the December newsletter went out on Monday, December 4th. If any of you or anyone has village news that you think should be considered for the newsletter, please send it to me, mayor@redhooknyvillage.org, and any pictures are always appreciated. Sewer project. So substantial completion, as you all know, was achieved on March 30th, 2023. We are down to the very bitter end. The electrical contract is fully complete. All the punch list items are complete. Final paperwork has been received, including their final pay application. The general contract, which is Carver Construction, the record drawings, we have received those. They have gotten some edits, and I need your last edits. And so those are in the last moments of completion. The photographic documentation we have not yet received. And then there are just a few properties where the grass has not been restored to an acceptable level, so reseeding will take place in the spring of 2024. We have identified the value of that restoration. And then there are just some other final documents, waivers and final invoice. We have expended $7,819,980.90. That leaves $627,137.10, the majority of which is retainage. We hold 5% of the construction contracts. Nothing has been expended since the last meeting. The final contract numbers are being reviewed, getting down to the penny. I do not expect an overage. And unfortunately, if there is an underage, it just means that the $1.2 million grant that we were awarded from USDA will just be less. So the amount that we need to finance will not go down, which is disappointing, but that's the way it's set up. All the final submittal is due to USDA this month, and we are working very hard to make that happen. Public Library. The Public Library had their regular board meeting on Wednesday, November 15th at the library on the 3rd floor at 6:30. Village resident Lorraine Humphrey joined me in attending the meeting. There were 4 library board members in attendance: Don O'Shea, Amy Houston, Gareth Davies, and Lee Banatka. Absent were Sarah DeVere, Anna Gregg, and Marta DePeppa. Amy Houston attended a Mid-Hudson Library System meeting at the Wallace Center at the FDR National Historic Site in Hyde Park. And Rebecca Smith Aldrich, Executive Director of the Mid-Hudson Library System, presented, and she is the co-founder of the Sustainable Library Initiative, which she discussed in her presentation. And I believe the Red Hook Public Library is initiating a Sustainable Library certification. Fundraising, they talked about their big event, which happened on December 1st, which was a celebration of their 125th birthday, and that happened at the VFW Post 7765 here in Red Hook from 4:30 to 6:30. And then they are currently doing an annual appeal. And they decided not to send out physical mail, so it's only an email that's going out. And then it is in their newsletter, poster on the front desk, and pushed on social media. Regarding buildings and grounds, the teen room, they met with Rick East, who is a village resident, and he is also a local interior an interior designer, and he has offered his design services pro bono to the library. The back room of the 3rd floor will likely become an art gallery. He gave an update on the stucco project, which is basically redoing the stucco on the outside of the building. And then there are other issues that they will be reviewing going forward, which include a generator, paving the parking lot, and the HVAC system. They decided that for holidays, the day before the holiday, they will close at 1 p.m. Under finance, there's an accountant contract for 2024 that's included in the budget. The cash balance at the end of October was $441,261.29. On the balance sheet, it shows Key Bank. They have some very small accounts at Key Bank, and the president of the board, Don O'Shea, may need to close them. They have put the monies as they had determined into the various reserves. So operations savings is $223,000 and stabilization is $149,000. And they have current assets, which are the same as their cash balance, which is $441,261.29. And they have fixed assets of $847,055.96. They had agreed to double the mortgage payments because they had the cash available. That had not yet started, but that should be starting, supposed to start in November, and so presumably they will get that taken care of to get started. And then on the profit and loss statement, they expect to be $73,000 better than budget at the year end, due primarily to lower than budgeted payroll and higher than expected bequests. They have a budget review. They have a balanced budget with $482,799 for revenue and expenses. They decided against joining the New York State retirement system, and they're going to go with a simple IRA. Is that Mr. Bogue in the back?
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. You have a fire report for me.
I do.
Come on up. Thank you for the personal delivery.
No problem.
For those who don't know, this is Tom Bogue, and you are of the...
President of the Red Fire.
There you go. I wanted to get
This
your
is the
title right.
village,
Thank you.
and
That's everything else. Thank you very much.
you're welcome very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let me finish the library report, and I'll go back and report on that. The director gave his report. He shared information about October programs. He mentioned that they are not offering many teen programs and that teens are not coming. They're going to be trying a new program next year called Teen Zine, like magazine, which is a collaboration with teens and a Bard student for a publication that will highlight Red Hook businesses. Teen Takeover will not be offered in 2024. The community center is doing one, and the library chose not to do one themselves. 2024 outreach includes the immigrant population, seniors, and school-age children. The library is attending the school book sale to offer sign-ups for library cards. Circulation is up 5% versus year ago, driven by e-circulation. Physical circulation is down. Staff evaluations have begun. And then in public comment, Lorraine Humphreys asked how programs are being advertised. The answer was online calendar, website, online newsletter, social media, flyers, and the Daily Catch. And it was noted that Lorraine is legally blind, and so the vast majority of these are not accessible to her. However, the website does have Recite Me on it. I would argue that both we, the village, and the library need to do a better job of communicating. Recite Me gives you the opportunity to have things on the website read to you, so you don't have to read it. You can actually have it read to you, or it can be translated into many different languages. And both the library and the village are doing that as a result. That was funded through a grant, through a county municipal investment grant.
Improvement.
Is that right?
I think it's improvement grant.
Improvement, thank you. I was like, I knew the I was for something. And when I asked about how much activity they get for Recite Me, the answer is they don't have very many hits. The board documents and all the detail, it can be accessed on the library website. Just know you need to go to the Board of Trustees, and the link to the board packet is actually embedded in the text towards the bottom of the page. And an important note, normally the meeting in December would be Thursday, December 21st. However, they have changed that to be Tuesday, December 19th. So the next library board meeting is Tuesday, December 19th at 6:30 at the library. So that's the library report. And I will now share with you the fire report. So in the month of, this is November. I'm not sure I have October. But anyway, this is November. And November in the village, there were 21 incidents. And again, the vast 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 16 of them were emergency medical service EMS calls. So 16 out of 21 is the majority. And then in basically outside of the village, primarily the town, the total count was 68. And I will add that to my chart and have it for the next meeting. And then the only other thing that I wanted to mention is we had a problem with the heat in the building, primarily in the police department. It was cold. I told them that I thought they liked it cold, which I'm not sure they appreciated. So we did have a plumber come and fix the issue, but he identified that we have a water heater that is well past time that it needs to be replaced. It's actually bulging in some spots, which is not a good sign. So I do have we reached out to 3 companies for estimates to replace. We are looking at replacing it with what's referred to as a a hybrid hot water heater, which is a heat pump in the hot water heater. And this is me on the edge of my knowledge of how this all works. And the 2 quotes are very similar. And the one we're going to go with is by a company. It's the Ed Carroll Heating and Cooling, and it's for $4,500. And at the next meeting, I will have a budget adjustment to identify where that's going to go. I will also, in this process, it was pointed out that the boiler that we have is a very old boiler. Clearly, when they did the expansion of the building, they chose not to touch those services. And so we will likely look at getting some specifications and going out to bid for a new boiler sometime in 2024. And that's my report. And on to Deputy Mayor Caraval.
Okay. So starting with Red Hook Together. Red Hook Together meets the first Thursday of the month at alternating times of day and locations. Invitations and meeting times are coordinated by BARD CCE. This month's meeting was held on December 7th at noon over Zoom. Conversation was concentrated on mental health in Red Hook. Multiple organizations expressed interest in participating in a roundtable focusing on the lack of mental health care resources available in our region and township. REF and the Rotary both announced projects.
Can you just identify what REF is?
Yes, REF is the Red Hook Education Foundation. Both announced projects in which they are prioritizing the issue. The Rotary is looking to expand awareness and connect people with existing services, while REF is interested in advocating and fundraising for goals identified by the Red Hook Central School District. The Red Hook Town Economic Development Committee. The EDC holds public meetings on the 2nd and 4th Wednesday of the month at 8:40 a.m. in Red Hook Village Hall courtroom. There were no EDC meetings since my last report due to holiday breaks. Village of Red Hook Communications Committee. The Communications Committee meets every first Wednesday of the month at 1:30 p.m. in the Village Hall conference room. December 6th meeting focused on What Does the Village Do For You brochure that is currently being edited by the different village offices. Also completed with the help and support of Village Clerk Jen Kavanaugh was the 2024 recycling calendar and sewer flyers. If you haven't yet, please visit redhookvillage.org/notify-me to sign up for village notifications, as well as redhookvillage.org/newsletter to subscribe to the mayor's monthly newsletter.
And just before you go on, I printed out the brochure, put it together. It's certainly not exact, but if you want to see it, and thank you for those who have made comments.
Very helpful.
The plan is when this has been finalized, is to then have it translated into Spanish, which will be funded by the county grant that we receive for language access, and then we'll print up a bunch and have them available. But if anybody wants to see what we're talking about in the live, but thank you. Go ahead.
The Village Events Committee. The Events Committee holds public meetings on the third Monday of each month at 6 p.m. at Village Hall. The next meeting will be December 18th. Yes, that's correct. Sorry. The Village Events Committee, with the help of Jake Smith and Laura Hart, decorated a tree for the 3rd annual Christmas Tree Festival hosted by Red Hook, Christchurch, and the Northern Touches Kiwanis Club.
Just to be clear, there are two trees.
Yes, there is the highway tree.
The award-winning highway tree from last year.
Mm-hmm. And then the village tree right next to it, which is really, it's very bright. There's a lot of lights on it and a lot of felt decorations. If you're interested in joining or volunteering for the events committee, please contact the committee chair, Amy Smith, by email at events@redhooknyvillage.org. And we do have a lot of fun. It's a lot of work sometimes, but mostly a lot of fun. Village of Red Hook Human Relations Committee. The Human Relations Committee holds public meetings every first Thursday of the month at 7 p.m. in the Village Hall Conference Room. The next meeting will be January 4th. Our December 7th meeting discussion focused on the proposed 2024 project. Theme, medium, community partnerships, options, and member time commitments were discussed, but there were no formal details agreed to at this time. Meanwhile, the committee's 2023 project was promoted by the Inside Out Project on their Instagram account on November 15th. And there's a link to it in my report, but you can also Google the Inside Out Instagram. And we are continuing to look for members who are interested in working to foster a vision where all who live, work, study, or visit Red Hook are valued for who they are and are empowered to engage in community life. For further details, email humanrelations@redhooknyvillage.org. And then the Village of Red Hook Highway Department. Brush pickup is concluded for 2023. The Highway Department may pick up leaf piles as long as the weather conditions allow. However, residents are encouraged to compost any remaining leaf piles if you have the space behind or beside your residence to do so. No all-night street parking is permitted in the village from November 1st through March 31st. Vehicles parked on the streets between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. may be ticketed and towed at the owner's expense. Note that there are plans to update the village code in the first half of 2024 to reflect the correct parking rules. Property owners are reminded it is the season to remove athletic equipment, garbage receptacles, and/or any other temporary obstacles from the side of their streets to prevent possible damage during snow and ice removal operations. And sidewalks. The owner and/or occupant of every building or lot in the village with an adjoining sidewalk is required to remove snow and ice within 24 hours of the end of a snowstorm. The village may remove uncleared snow or ice at the cost of $2 per linear foot to the property owner. Charges will be assessed and collected with the next tax levy. And scrap metal program. Revenue received from the sale of scrap metal during or since the last report was $617.58. Total revenue for the fiscal year 2023 to 2024 to date is $4,096.80. And since the program's inception in September 2007, donations have yielded a total of $51,974.94. Proceeds go towards the purchase of tools and equipment for the Public Works Department. Residents and businesses interested in donating scrap metal may contact the village clerk's office to schedule a pickup.
And I just actually would like to add, I know there was a discussion at the last meeting on the stop sign at Cherry and Grave Street. We spoke with the highway foreman, and he's actually ordered reflective material to put on the signpost. Well, there you go. He's he's faster than I. What's that? Well, it's a start. Two steps forward, hopefully not too many steps back. Anyway, glad to hear that it's on.
I think on behalf of my father, he had a question about the paving from the intersection of 99 to 9G by the Montgomery Orchards Farm Stand.
So that's actually in the town. So that doesn't fall under our purview. So that would be that. So the town is responsible for that. We don't deal with those roads. They're not our responsibility. Not under our control.
Town supervisor and town highway superintendent.
You can also encourage him to send an email. Emails are a great way to communicate.
And the highway supervisor for the town lives in the village. So
That's true. She does.
is a village resident.
That is very true. So actually, I don't know who would. He could send it to the town supervisor and the town highway superintendent. I would highly encourage that. Okay, thank you. Trustee Lang.
Yes, Mayor. Let's start off with the Village of Red Hook Resource Recovery Data Report, otherwise known as Materials Management. In the month of November, we collected 0.92 tons of commingled, 0.52 tons of cardboard, and 1.07 tons of paper for a total recycling of 2.51 tons. We also collected 1.8 tons of garbage, which at $105 a ton was $203 to dispose of, together with a fuel surcharge of $17.77, for total costs of $220.77, and we collected $2,718 in revenue from garbage tags sold, and those are sold here and at the
that's
library and at Taste Buds.
Just a note that we probably should figure out how to incorporate is that we do have a container by Welsh, so they are taking some of the trash so that we're not taking all of it to the Ulster County Resource Recovery.
Jen,
So
you mentioned that.
We should figure out how to incorporate that into your
Right. And
report.
we've had that for quite a while.
Well,
the
since the
garbage
garbage
truck
truck died, so 6
okay.
months, maybe, not forever.
Yeah, we should include that.
And then just to the revenue piece, is that meant to subtract out the costs? It doesn't look like the,
No, it doesn't. It's just the,
just noting the total revenue.
yeah. Because, I mean, obviously the costs are a lot more than just the costs of dumping the garbage.
Very true. Great, thank you.
Moving on to the Village of Red Hook Water Treatment Facilities monthly report. So in the month of November, the water treatment facility treated 6,537,900 total gallons, which is an average of 217,900 gallons per day, which puts us, I think, right where we need to be, and similar level of usage to this time last year, a little higher. There were 3 samples collected for bacteriological testing, and they all came back absent. And during the month of November, the water treatment plant used 75 gallons of sodium hypochlorite, which comes to an average daily use of 2.4 gallons per day. So that's the basic water treatment facilities report. There was also a meeting of the Sawkill Watershed Community in November.
Before you go there, I just want to comment, on the water report, it references the well control issues that will hopefully be all resolved with the
Very
SCADA
soon.
controls update.
Right.
It also mentions the town-village interconnect, which is the project that we will no longer be doing under the WIA grant that we just received.
Right.
But that interconnect, the purpose of that is to supply the village with water on an emergency basis from the town. And in reviewing the quantity of water that we have in storage, we use about, well, here it's 217,000 gallons per day. There's, I'm not going to get the numbers exactly right, but it's about 230,000 gallons in the water tower. There's about 530 gallons in one of the water tanks by the old highway garage. And then there's another 250,000 in the second water tank. So we do actually have emergency storage for a few days. So while it's something that we need to address at some point, it's not as urgent as it might be. And we, the village, can supply the town with water. That has always worked. It's the other way that has never worked. So just wanted to make that point. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So,
Oh,
yeah.
and sorry, the one other point I wanted to make was we did get a request from Stephen Savona of Savona's to connect with the village water. And we have reviewed that with our engineer, and we are looking at, doing a lot of one-off contracts, which is all that we are allowed to do as a village, is not the most efficient way to create a water system. And so we actually had an initial meeting with the town to review what the possibilities are, and there'll be more to report on that later.
Thanks.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's fine. So I was just mentioning there was a meeting of the Sawkill Watershed Community at the Elwyn Dorf. That was back on November 15th. Oh, hopefully Kim was there. Good for you, Kim, because I was in Scotland at the time, so I don't have anything to report.
There's
Could
a
you?
report, I got it.
Excellent. And they had a well-attended meeting, and
She wrote her whole report.
oh, that's good.
So you're all set.
Where is that?
It's in her little, there you go.
It's the last page of my.
Okay, well, I will leave that to you to report on. Thank you very much.
But you can also report that you're now officially a member of the Community Preservation Fund.
I am.
Congratulations.
Well, the Community Preservation Fund Committee, yes, after a little wrangling with
It just
Mr.
needed to be
McKeon.
formalized.
Yes, it just needed to be formalized.
Because-
So I am taking the place of Brent, basically, on that committee, which oversees and reviews applications to be funded by the Community Preservation Fund for community preservation projects.
What I realized recently is Brent used to report on how much money was in the Community Preservation Fund.
Lots.
So I would imagine they've used some with the
yes.
Cookingham projects.
Well,
That
I
would
mean,
be really
yes,
helpful
I will
to
be
ha-
able to report on that.
That would be great. We look forward to that.
Not at the next meeting, though, because I can't make it, but
Well, maybe you could email somebody and ask them for the data, so
Right.
that we could at least have that piece.
as a member of the committee, I could probably do that. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yes, they're having a meeting this Thursday to discuss, actually, the UTS property.
Ah. That's the,
They're also going to be talking about
To be
it at the
named
town
park.
meeting.
what's that?
They're also going to be talking about it at the town board meeting tomorrow.
Okay.
The community fund program with the UTS.
Thanks, Kim. Okay. That it?
Yes.
Trustee Bradley Reichard, so you're up.
Please bear with me because I'm probably going to have coffee attacks. But, okay, so the Village Green Committee, and let me know if you can hear me okay. Current ballots as of wrong date, November 30th is community beautification contractual expenses, $212.13. There were no expenses for the shade tree, and the Village Green checking account is $9,046.32. And there were no formal Village Green Committee meetings held during the month of November, but we had our annual fall tree planting where we had 15 volunteers come out on a sunny and brisk Saturday morning with shovels, gloves, and gusto. And this helps us continue our 22nd year as a Tree City community. This year we planted 20 trees around the village, and I would like to say thank you to everyone involved, but particularly a special thank you to Michelle Decker of Decker Construction for digging and preparing the tree planting sites, the Village Highway Department for post-planting watering and tree mulch delivery, Dave Pearson for organizing the tree delivery, coordinating site preparation, and the crew at Corner Counter for preparing our food for the post-planting volunteer luncheon. The town of Red Hook and their volunteers also planted that same day, working for our entire community, where both municipalities are actively adding to our urban canopy and doing our part to offset greenhouse gases. We have successfully submitted our final grant report for a New York State Urban Forestry Reimbursement Grant that had been awarded to the planting of trees, and our application to continue to be recognized as a Tree City was finished and submitted early for the upcoming year. Residents and businesses interested in having a tree or trees planted on their adjacent village street or New York State highway right-of-ways, volunteering for planting days, or sponsoring a Village Green Committee beautification project may contact David Pearson, myself, or Jen Kavanaugh, the village clerk. At the time of this report, the next meeting was scheduled to be held on December 6th, but had been postponed to next weekend, Sunday at 6 p.m. So if you are around and you want to attend the Village Green Committee, feel free to attend Sunday at 6 p.m. at Village Hall. We are actively seeking members of our community to join. The sewer department, we continue to meet regularly to discuss bigger plants and addressing requests for future connections to the sewer system. During the month of November, the village board passed a resolution to allow village engineers to compile a report and plan for maximum expansion so that as we move forward, we have a master plan to work toward adding to our system. The step sewer system was specifically designed to be able to add for future expansion without involving a complete overhaul of the system. It was designed with phases in mind to be able to address the growing needs of the village and our residents. We should expect the report to come in from the engineer around March 2024. With this report, we'll be able to seek out potential funding opportunities for expansion. During the month of October, we averaged 12,000 million gallons a day in the old plant and 39,000 million gallons a day in the new Brent Kovalchuk plant. There were 5 samples sent out for testing and all came back within the normal range. For the old plant, one process train is down for review of deficiencies, and clogging has been an issue for some time at the pump station, and it's recommended that the pump station mixing should be implemented to help with pump failure and pump station pump outs. As a reminder to all residents, whether you're in the sewer use area or not, please be kind to your pipes. Put only the 3 P's in the toilet: pee, poop, and toilet paper. While in the kitchen or near other drains, no fats, oils, or grease, also known as fog. They clog up the pipes and make the system stressed out. What goes down your drain matters. If you are in the sewer use area and the emergency alarm goes off, call the village sewer operator at 845-758-1081 and press option 8. Press the silence alarm button only after notifying the sewer operator. And please do not open or tamper with the village-owned equipment. For the speed limit initiative monthly report, during the November board meeting of trustees, we passed a resolution to hire the firm Creighton Manning to move forward on an all-encompassing traffic study that will take into consideration a school zone, village roads, and the main throughways. They will compile a report based on their study to aid in the documentation to lower the area village speed limit to 25 miles an hour. The lower speed limit would help residents, businesses, and the overall safety of our village streets. We have signed the contract and are waiting to hear when we should expect the work to be completed. For the Town of Red Hook Greenway and Trails Committee, I attended the town's Greenway and Trails Committee for the first time during the month of November. The committee discussed the improvements to the trails, particularly connecting Rec Park West and East, the new trails to be developed on, and what was previously the Cookingham Farm, which will then connect into Abraham's Park, which is village property. With these expansions and amendments, the town is working to further connect and adapt the village to village trails, which connects Red Hook to Tivoli. There was a discussion about reaching out to BARD about better connections for trail use and safety of pedestrians and cyclists traveling through the area, particularly those that commute regularly. How to work together to create a safer trail system. This committee also discussed its partnership with Winnicke and the ways to support their trail cleanup, and they hosted a cleanup on December 9th to clean up the trails at Rec Park, which I heard was a great success. There was also discussion about future projects in other areas to expand the walkability of Red Hook in general.
Thank you for attending those meetings, by the way.
What?
Thank you for attending those meetings. That's great.
Yeah, you're welcome. For Climate Smart Communities, Trustee Appenzeller and myself met with the representative of Clean Energy Communities and Climate Smart Communities to discuss village plans for certification of Climate Smart Communities. The Climate Smart Communities program provides local governments with a framework to guide their climate action and recognizes communities for their climate leadership. The village did an original assessment plan back in 2018 and made a pledge to uphold the ideas of being a responsible municipality for climate smart. And this is a multi-pronged approach for numerous actions and projects to complete that allows for certification as a climate smart community. One of our first steps is to create a task force of engaged citizens who can work together to fulfill projects and paperwork to build our profile. We will be reaching out to community members who may be interested in joining this task force in the near future, but if you are interested in learning more or want to join, please contact myself or Trustee Appenzeller. And then the report for the Sauk Hill Watershed Community, submitted on behalf of Charlie because he was in Scotland. During the month of November, the Sauk Hill Watershed Community Group met for the first time since the start of the COVID lockdown in 2020. They are in a period of transition and looking to reassess how to be impactful and beneficial to the greater area beyond just the Sauk Hill watershed. The meeting was opened with a welcome and a brief overview of what they've been doing since their last in-person meeting. They maintained a small leader group planning that focused on educational materials, but are now looking to expand to cover broader issues, engage the community more, and are asking what is the future of the Sauk Hill Watershed Community Group, and what best serves the community at large. They have partnered with other groups such as Winnicke Land Trust, the Town of Red Hook's CAC, and the DWSP2, which is the Drinking Water Source Protection Program. And currently, they are focused on testing the groundwater. They set up water test kits to be available around town for residents to pick up and return with their water samples to be tested. There was a brief presentation by lab interns at BARD and the director of the lab about the process of testing and sampling the water. This is a pilot study, and it is hoped to expand into a full-fledged study. Amy Shine discussed the amphibian migration road crossing project and are looking for volunteers to go out and help amphibians cross the roads during migration season for mating, and particularly doing counts and collecting data for DEC. This happens usually early March. This helps with the overall picture of the health of the watershed. It can also shed light on what areas to protect and to conserve. Over the last couple of years, it is estimated that this project has saved upwards of 800 amphibians. Yay, little guys. The Red Hook Source Water Initiative collaborates with the DEC to help with conservation easements, and the Sawkill Water Community Group is working on its unnamed streams in the watershed. They are focused on finding the tributaries and naming them if they aren't already named, particularly interested in reaching out to the affected communities and historically marginalized communities of the watershed area to help with the naming or finding the existing names. The president of the Sawkill Water Community Group then opened up the meeting to a quote-unquote community conversation to brainstorm together what they can do moving forward and thinking of ways to formalize the question comment forum for residents. Thank you.
Super. Thank you very much, Kim. All right. Trustee Appenzeller.
Okay, for the Village of Red Hook Building Department, there were 10 building permits issued during the month. Certificates of occupancy issued were 4, and there were also 4 certificates of compliance, 3 municipal searches. Volume is a little bit lower than the prior month. Orders to remedy, there was 1 for a pod unit at 31 Fraley Street. There was a stop work order at 20 Garden Street, which also was in conjunction with a do not occupy notice at the same address, and there was also a complaint at 20 Garden Street, all related to the same issue. There were no court appearances and 3 fire inspections. The total for the activity during the month generated $4,319 in fee revenue at the planning department. There were no planning board actions because there was no November meeting due to lack of a quorum. The zoning board of appeals also did not have a November meeting because there were no items on the agenda. For the Public Spaces Initiative, there's no formal report. The last meeting was held on December 2nd, and the bulk of the meeting was recapping accomplishments for the year, and that was included in my report from the prior month. And it was nice for everyone to get together, and the chair, Ash Bradley Reichard, thanked everyone for their hard work. And starting next year, planning will commence for activities that will take place once the weather turns more favorable for the Pollinator Gardens, public art, and other initiatives under the aegis of that group. And that is it for my report.
Yeah, I guess you'd probably say that under the Public Spaces Initiative, the BARD class that is going to be doing their
Yes, we
sort
had
of private event from our last meeting.
private event, so I wasn't sure if we wanted to
Well, I think
mention
it's,
that, but we did get at our workshop meeting, a great presentation from Bard Studio Art Class. They are on the 14th going to be setting up site-specific artworks in Abraham's Park, mostly of a smaller scale, although some are larger, and I think this is a trial run for perhaps a more comprehensive display of artwork for this spring and going forward. This will be out there for a few hours. As the mayor mentioned, it's a private event, but if you happen to be strolling in Abraham's Park at that time, you can admire the work of the, I think about 14 different students. They had some very creative and interesting ideas, and it will be great to see that work displayed out across the park.
and hopefully that'll inspire other opportunities for displaying art in and around the village. And because there is something in our code about that, it used to happen, and it'd be nice to see it happen again. I realize that I need to write a report on the Abrahams Park Task Force, and I will do a formal report at our next meeting. We have met twice, and we really are in the beginning stages of putting together a process to ultimately create a master plan for Abrahams Park, which was in process before the Cookingham project came about, and it just seems that much more fortuitous that that'll just be an addition. I want to make sure that the entrance into Abrahams Park from Cookingham is one that is not just a continuous path, but that is here you are at Abrahams Park, and distinguish it. And also, we are looking at creating some parking, because currently there is no really designated parking for Abrahams Park. And so we're actually looking at the wooded section on Linden Avenue. It appears that we should have the opportunity to do a parking lot there. It'll take a while, but we need approval from DEC, et cetera. But it seems encouraging at the moment, so that's exciting. Any other general business at this time? Okay, hearing none. Public comment?
You mentioned the water project on Cherry Street.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of concern with both residents that we have problems with that road. And if it's going to be repaved in this project, it's got to be lowered.
You'd mentioned that, yeah.
It's a big problem. The drainage by his place, they're collapsing. The road's collapsing once in a while. And by me, and he's had water in his garage, and I've had water in my basement. And in the wintertime, when you get slush on the side of the road, and you got a big meltdown, and you come down from Route 9, down the street, and our house is low, because the road's been raised up, but right inside the house. Or, most of the houses there are stacked fieldstone. They're not concrete basements.
I'll make sure that that's included in the, when we talk about the construction, et cetera. I'm sure the initial part will be, focused on, I'm just not sure how the paving is going to go, but I will definitely take that into account and have that included in the discussion.
Last time they did put a little berm with the asphalt. It was not a curb.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to direct the water away from the houses. The bottom line is the road's got to balance 4 or 5 inches.
Well, I mean, and normally the road, it would be angled this way so that the water flows off the road and doesn't puddle in the road. Well, into the side of the road, and in theory, that's supposed to go down into the ground, not into your basement.
The drain's there, but if you bypass the drain because of how it's constructed and how they pave it out, that doesn't work out so well.
I'll make sure to mention that to the engineer as we talk about it.
If they're gonna, when you get to that point we're looking at, I have a guy in the village here, with residents, who've paved thousands of miles of highways, cities, village, and street all over the place in parking lots. To look at it and explain what the problems are, just the so-called experts sometimes, to avoid wasting a lot of money or damaging our properties.
Definite.
To go down, and it's got to be beveled in such a way that the water goes to the drains that are there. Not like you did in the other part of town where they put the drains in people's front lawns, which is useless. When you plow, you're going to get a berm of slush on the side. That becomes your curbing. It's not going to get near the drains.
10 years ago, I had to put a new copper water line in because the iron line rotted.
Mm-hmm.
And it was probably more than 10 years ago. Bucky Coon, he couldn't find the water shut off. And he finally did find it. And when they dug it down, he said, I didn't realize this. This road is 14 inches thick. From the original road to where it is now is 14 inches. So when it does rain really heavy, my driveway is flooded. The sewers can't, the groundwater, it doesn't go in the basin.
That had to be over many, many years, because it hasn't been repaved in a while. So 14 inches is a lot of new paving.
They dug it out last time, because I'm out there screaming at them. They dig out, but they didn't go down to the dirt.
And
They
when
dug it
was,
down about, 10 inches or so.
okay.
they really have to dig it out, because I can show you pictures, I have a flood in front of it.
I'll make sure that the comments are added to the engineer.
Let us know so we can look at what they're doing, when they do it. We'll be out there when they're doing it.
I'm sure you will.
We have to stop it, we'll stop it.
Got it. Thank you. Okay. Anything else? Okay. We do have an executive session for this evening. I don't, let me do the voucher. Motion to approve vouchers after audit.
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Hi.
Okay, so we're going to go into executive session. I do not anticipate any action after executive session. Though we do have to come back into public session to adjourn. So I would take a motion, and the executive session is regarding negotiations, regarding property. May I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you.
Are we bringing Kim with us?
I was gonna say, do I come?
Well, I was thinking that we would just call you, can we just call you on your cell phone?
Yeah.
Okay. Great, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we are now adjourned to
Then Kim,
executive.
you have to turn off your video and your.
Yeah, you can leave the Zoom meeting, and then I'll call you on your cell phone. And you can close up, there's nobody else on anyway.
Have a good evening, thank you.
Have a good
Thanks,
night.
guys, thanks for coming.
Recording stopped.